On a quiet April night in 1973, in the sleepy town of Enfield, Illinois, Henry McDaniel was at home with his wife and children when something strange disrupted the calm. It was a knock-no, more like a claw and at the front door. At first, he assumed it was a prank or maybe a stray dog, but the sound was too aggressive, too deliberate. When he opened the door, nothing could have prepared him for what he saw next. Standing there on the porch was a creature unlike anything McDaniel or anyone else had ever seen. It was short, not even 5 feet tall, with a weirdly stumpy body that didn't match any known animal. But what truly froze him in place were the details. It had 3 legs, 2 oddly short arms, and 2 enormous pink eyes that glowed like flashlights in the dark. It looked more alien than beast. McDaniel slammed the door shut, heart pounding, and rushed for his .22 pistol. He fired a few shots in the direction of the thing, watching it vanish into the shadows with an impossible speed, bounding away like no creature of Earth should. The next day, authorities arrived to investigate, expecting a hoax. But what they found forced them to reconsider. There were deep scratches on the screen, door too high and wide to be from a raccoon or even a large dog. Even more disturbing were the tracks. They weren't human, and they weren't animal. The prints resembled dog tracks, but with one disturbing difference: 6 distinct toes on each paw. Despite the unusual evidence, police tried to downplay the incident, suggesting it was likely a misidentified animal. But McDaniel wasn't backing down. If they do find it, he told the Mount Torque, Vernon Register News, they will find more than one, and they won't be from this planet, I can tell you that. His words sent a ripple of fear through Enfield. The story hit local headlines. Reporters swarmed, neighbors whispered, and suddenly, what had been just another quiet town in Illinois became the center of one of the strangest alien encounter reports in American history. To this day, no explanation has ever been found. But that night in 1973, something walked or hopped onto Henry McDaniel's porch. And according to him, it didn't come from here. In the days that followed Henry McDaniel's chilling encounter, the town of Enfield was gripped by a mix of curiosity, quiet dread. Local law enforcement had dismissed the incident as a misidentification. But word had already spread, not just in Enfield, but across southern Illinois. What McDaniel described didn't sound like any bear, dog, or mountain lion. It didn't even sound terrestrial. Then came the second sighting. A group of local boys claimed they had seen the creature darting between trees at lightning speed, describing glowing eyes and that same unnatural gait. It didn't walk or run, it bounced, almost kangaroo-like, on its 3 legs. Their story matched McDaniel's almost perfectly. And again, the police found strange footprints near the area. By now, the Enfield Horror, as it had come to be called, was no longer just a backyard monster. Amateur monster hunters, cryptozoologists, and journalists from as far as Chicago began pouring into town. Some carried cameras, others guns. The situation was growing out of control. Local authorities warned people to stay indoors at night, not because they believed in monsters, but because the trigger-happy crowd of outsiders was becoming dangerous. But McDaniel held his ground. Despite ridicule, he repeated the same account to every reporter and investigator who came by. He wasn't seeking fame. If anything, he seemed irritated by the attention. "I wish I'd never opened the door," he told one journalist, "but I know what I saw, and it wasn't from this world." Oddly, there was one detail few mentioned: a history of strange sightings in the area. Locals whispered that something had been lurking in the woods and fields around Enfield for years. Odd lights in the sky, unexplainable sounds in the night, livestock found dead without obvious cause. But no one talked about it publicly, not until McDaniel gave it a face, or at least 2 massive pink eyes. Then came another twist. A visiting team from a university's paranormal studies group came to Enfield. They interviewed witnesses, analyzed footprints, and took photos. Their unofficial conclusion? Something unknown had definitely happened, and multiple credible witnesses weren't likely to be lying in unison. But without physical evidence, the case couldn't move beyond speculation. Still, one question haunted everyone in Enfield. If this creature was real, what did it want? Why was it appearing in backyards, peering into windows, scratching at doors? And worse, was it really alone? As quickly as the creature arrived, it vanished. By late summer of 1973, sightings of the Enfield Horror dwindled. The media circus died down. The monster hunters packed up and moved on to other legends. And Enfield, once shaken by a ripple of fear and fascination, tried to go back to normal. But the legend never really left. Henry McDaniel never retracted his statement. He lived the rest of his life standing by his story, insisting he had nothing to gain from the attention. In fact, he'd lost peace, privacy, and the respect of some neighbors. Yet, quietly, others in the town admitted to him they'd seen something too. Strange shadows, movements in the trees, a pair of glowing eyes watching from the cornfield. Still, most remained silent. In small towns, disbelief is safer than ridicule. Then, years later, in 2004, an anonymous letter was sent to a paranormal journal. The writer claimed to be a former Enfield resident. In the letter, they described an encounter eerily similar to McDaniel's from the mid-1980s. Same shape, same unnatural movement, same flashlight-like eyes. They even claimed to have seen two of them walking along the edge of a soybean field before disappearing into the night. The letter was never verified, but it reignited interest. Cryptid forums lit up with speculation. Some claimed the creature was a misidentified kangaroo or escaped exotic pet, though that didn't explain the eyes, the speed, or the strange footprints. Others theorized it was an alien scouting party, sent to observe rather than harm. A few more radical voices connected it to other Midwestern legends, like the Mothman or Flatwoods Monster, suggesting a broader pattern of non-human visitors to rural America. In 2010, a documentary crew visited Enfield to revisit the case. The surviving locals were wary. Some refused interviews. Others repeated what had become almost gospel. McDaniel was telling the truth. We just didn't want to believe him. One of the final interviews in that documentary was with a retired deputy who'd been young during the original investigation. He leaned back in his chair and said, "You know, I didn't believe Henry back then. Thought it was just a story. But after all these years, I'm not so sure anymore. We never found out what left those prints. Never explained the scratches. Never found that thing. And maybe that's the scariest part." To this day, no definitive explanation has ever been proven. No creature was ever captured, and no hoaxer ever came forward. The Enfield Horror remains one of the strangest and most persistent unsolved cryptid cases in American history. And if Henry McDaniel was right, then somewhere in the dark woods of Illinois, something not of this world may still be watching.